Not a ghost. Or anything. But a little spoopy thing that happened to me as a kid. Got other stories. Shit like this happened a lot at the old place I lived at. Be me. 15 live and isolated house out in middle of the woods. Me and friends explore the woods all the time. Know them pretty well. One night. Hear a weird, loud crack sound coming from woods. Think maybe it's a tree collapsing? But it was weird, it was just one loud crack like a gunshot, but not quite. Whatever, write it off. Next day. Go in a woods. Suddenly. In an area where we've been plenty of times before, there's this huge barrel. I say barrel. But it was like the size of a small house. Rusted. Dented. Had a hole in the side of it where we could climb in. Nothing particularly interesting inside. How the kick did it get here? It was miles from any road. No markings and vegetation surrounding it to indicate it had been dragged there or anything. Slightly spooked by it at first. Eventually. Spookiness wears off, we use it as a landmark. We have parties inside it, drinking, smoking. Gets filled up with empties and cigarette butts. Graffiti the site of it, including Anon hearts Anon's first crush. One night. About 2 years later. Again, loud crack sound. Go out to the barrel the next day. It's gone, along with everything inside it. Just a big patch of bare dirt where it had been, again nothing to show it had been dragged away. Kinda sad because the barrel had become a pretty cool hangout over the past couple years, but oh well. Here's to you. Barrel bro. Wherever you are. There's so many. This is the place where I grew up, and it wasn't until I moved away that I understood just how much weird shit happened to me when I was there. When I moved away and began experiencing normal life, that I began to understand just how odd that place was. Not all necessarily paranormal either. A small non-paranormal story. In the middle of all this lush pine forest, there was this odd art that was entirely sand dunes. This isn't the only weird thing I saw happen there either. Great place for sledding when it snowed. Dad worked as an electric engineer for a company that had a manufacturing site way out in the woods for some reason. Takes us to go sledding at the sand dunes. We get there, having a ball, sledding all over the place. Come across a pond that had never been there before. Pond isn't frozen over, and it is crystal flicking clear, no plant or animal growth or mud or anything. Except for one thing, the water is slightly blue. Dad sees this and gets angry as hell. Tells us to get in the car. We go home, he makes a phone call to work to scream at someone. Tells us not to go to the sand dunes until he tells us we can. Next time we go, pond is gone. Another time. I was hiding in the woods at the edge of the sand dunes while watching black helicopters land there. Note that there was no nearby military base or really any nearby anything. Or if you want something a little more weird. Be about 12 years old. It's pouring rain outside, nighttime. I had just gone out to get our dog out of his pen to bring him inside out of the rain. Because he was still a bit of a puppy and a spaz. He broke out to run into the woods. Grab flashlight, go into woods looking for him. Pretty deep in, I can hear him crashing around through the brush. Suddenly. To my left, hear some grunting noises. Almost like a pig. But more guttural. I freeze. Take a step towards the noise. Hear a loud thump as something flops through the brush. I'm kind of spooked. But I always felt safe when my dog was nearby. I figured if it was something really bad he would have seen it and started barking at it when he tore through the woods. Plus I can still hear him crashing around the woods pretty close by, so I'm not too worried. Shine my light through the brush, push some branches aside. Holy shit. It's the biggest kicking toad I have ever seen. When I say big, I don't mean just like a normally big toad. I mean that this thing was easily bigger than a raccoon. Realize the grunting sound I heard earlier was its croak. Something's off about it. It's not just a supersized toad. It doesn't look quite like the other toads I had occasionally caught. Eyes are set much further back in its head, almost near its stomach, than normal. Of course I immediately want to try to catch it. Reach my hand out for it. Opens its mouth to ree at me. Realize what else is different about it. I know a lot of toads have small nubs of teeth. This one has an entire mouth full of thin, needle-like teeth. Fall backwards in shock. Toad hops away crashing through brush. Gather my dog. Tell family about huge kicking toad I saw, they just think I must have seen a really big normal toad. Ever since then, our house was plagued with toads every summer. Literally dozens of them hopping around the yard at any given time. There was lots of things that don't necessarily make for a good story. For example, one day me and my friends, all of us, experienced not a few minutes, not an hour or so, of deja vu, an entire day that we all swore up and down had happened before. There was other weird stuff too. Electronic appliances would turn themselves on pretty often, and one microwave we had curiously remained on even after unplugged. Then there were the people, like the old lady down the street who would always give us children's crayons drawings to deliver to her granddaughter at school. Later found out that her granddaughter had died in a car accident. No idea if she was making these drawings herself out of dementia or something. Or the time, as little kids, we found the humongous skull of some animal poking out of the ground, so big we all thought it was an elephant skull, not realizing elephants wouldn't be where we lived. Told our parents about it, and a week later it was just gone. There's one story. This was after our microwave wouldn't turn off even after unplugged. My mom was convinced our house was possessed or haunted. Dad just laughed and bought new microwave. Mom insisted that an old abandoned house, passed by it on our way to school every morning, was a center of cult activity and was causing all this. Said she had seen lights in the windows at night. So of course, me and my friends, 16 at the time, wanted to check it out at night. Because spooks. Go with two guys. Isaac and Richard. House is normal as we approach, a bit trashed. Garbage on the lawn, old wrappers and empties and shit, figure someone must have been squatting. Front door is unlocked, just stroll inside. As soon as we enter the house, feeling hits us, all of us, at the same time. Something's kicked, here. Can't explain it. Just went from sudden feeling of complete lack of worry to intense, overwhelming feeling of dread. Inside of the house is weird. Large sheets of ripped blue plastic on the ground. Looked like they had been containers for something. Like something big, sealed in plastic, that you had to rip apart to get at. Picked one up to look for a label, no label, just a barcode and the serial number. Okay, flip light switch. Electricity is on for some reason. Head into kitchen. Devoid of anything. No cabinets. No nothing, no fridge, no sink, everything's been cleared out. Sawdust and metal shavings all over the ground. Shrug. Meanwhile, Isaac's getting jittery. Alright man, we checked it out, let's get the fuck out of here. Me and David tease him about being a pussy. Head upstairs. Lights up there aren't working, so we bust out flashlights. All pretty much normal up there. Empty rooms. Some abandoned furniture. All except for one room. One room that is lined with mirrors. Floor-length mirrors lining every wall. Mirror on the ceiling. Okay. Maybe whoever moved out just hadn't bothered taking them. Richard is behind me, looking down the stairs. Suddenly gets deathly white. Pushes me and Isaac into the mirror room. Before we can say anything he whispers, "Shut the fuck up, someone just turned off the light downstairs." Oh, fuck. We all strain our ears listening. Richard is standing by the door, ready to jump whoever decides to walk in. Can't hear shit. About 20 minutes pass like this. About to suggest venturing downstairs. Suddenly whole house shakes. Every light comes blazing on, even the ones upstairs, which hadn't been working. Isaac just barely stops himself from shouting out. I look out the window of the mirror room. There's no car parked in the front yard. Whoever came into the house, they'd have to try to chase us on foot. House shakes again. One of the light bulbs in the room pops. Glass falls down on me, it's burning fucking hot. Fuck it, time to run. All three of us stampede down the stairs. Basement door is open. It sounds like something's running down there, like a washing machine crossed with a lawnmower gone wild. As we dash past the door, hear someone yell out, "Is someone there?" From the basement. Run into the woods. When we were about halfway back home, calm down a bit. Decide to stick together and drop Isaac off at his house first, then me, then Richard, since his house was the closest walk from mine, He'd spend less time walking alone. Call him to make sure he gets home fine, he does. Next day. The abandoned house is burned the fuck down. Ask parents about it, dad says fire department just used it for practice. Return to empty lot a few days later. The basement had been filled with cement. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe.